another day. Now go and tell all the neighbors, yeah. Then crank up the radio. There's infotainment, brilliance to get you on your way. Wake up and start your day with Jimmy Lakey.
Well, just like the choir informs you, there's infotainment and brilliance here for the next hour or so. Good to have you here. Lakey Unleashed Daily Update. Pleasured, pleased, and I'm actually thrilled. I'm tingling all over just thinking of being here with you. Bright and early in the morning. It's 10 o'clock in the the Eastern time zone, 8 o'clock in the Mountain time zone, 7 o'clock for all of you folks out on the Pacific Coast time. And I don't know what time it is in Hawaii, but all you need to know is Mazie Hirono is horny. That's what you got to know. Anybody watch this senator from Hawaii? Evidently, her coin phrase is, is she asked everybody that she is in a hearing for, the horny senator from Hawaii. She says, have you ever done unwanted advances sexually on anyone? Have you ever harassed anyone? That's her signature phrase. I'm sure the people of Hawaii said, wow, we need to have Mazie go to Hawaii so she can ask people about their sexual escapades and indiscretions. That's why Mazie, the horny senator from Hawaii, is out. I got a video of that. She asked Pam Bondi about her sexual escapades yesterday. What a disgusting woman Mazie Hirono is. And if you're listening in Hawaii, we've had people check in from India, Germany. We've looked at the data, people all around the globe. Not heard anyone from Hawaii. And that's probably because some of the folks in Hawaii are not that educated on politics, or they would not have Mazie, the horny Senator Hirono, there as their representative. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Glad to have you. Got a big-time program here. If you're new to the Lakey Unleashed Daily Update, my name is Jimmy Lakey, and we do... I was for years in corporate talk radio, and know many of you from there. And then I finally got poop canned off to the curb by corporate talk radio as they were no longer committed to local products. They just wanted national syndicated guys talk about national issues. So I decided I'd go out on my own, and I'm unleashed from the bonds of corporate radio. And therefore I started the Lakey Unleashed thing. And we still do a lot of try to narrow it down. Don't try to just shake our fist at Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, but try to even stay atop of some of the other things that are happening, not just in your city, but my city, and try to take a different approach. But it's all infotainment, information, entertainment, meet together. And they had a baby, and it's me. So there you have it. All right, good to have you here. Just got a ping. Did you just call Mazie Hirono horny? I don't know what else to call her. Why else would you? Let me just play this video of her. This is her asking Pam Bondi yesterday if she had done anything. Had you It's like Mazie Hirono wants to go out there and give somebody a doll and say, please show us where you touched someone on the doll. Where did the mean man hurt you? Or where did you hurt someone? Show us what you did to the doll. It's like it's a therapy session. What a disgusting U.S. Senator. Mazie Hirono is her name, and this is the video of yesterday with Pam Bondi asking her, if you're going to be known for something, hey, what do you think of the Constitution? Can you say the Gettysburg Address? But her signature is, I have to ask all the people that I interview for these confirmation hearings about their sexual drive and their sexual proclivities, and did they do anything naughty? And I don't know what kind of... First of all, if they did, they're not going to tell you, Mazie Hirono, you horny senator. I think you're just a dirty old woman that ain't getting any at home or something, and you just want to find out and to ask dirty questions to someone else. I think it's some kind of a fetish that Mazie may have, but that's just my opinion. And is protected by the Constitution of the United States of America. Here's Mazie Hirono yesterday.
May leave the meeting to open the Senate, so whoever's on our side is acting chairman during that period of time. Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Horny Hirono.
As part of my responsibility to ensure the fitness of all nominees, I asked the
It's part of her responsibility. She took the oath of office, and this is what popped into her head as her responsibility of ensuring that a nominee is credible. She said, this is it. This is the question she asked everybody this question.
Following two initial questions.
Two questions.
First, since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement relating to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator.
That's her signature question. As a senator, I have to ask these two questions. I wonder if Mazie Hirono, the horny Hirono, that we're going to call her, asking dirty questions of people, as if they're going to say, Yes, I have. I sexually harassed her. What are they going to say? You know, I wait for someone to say, well, I just harassed myself. That's it. That's the only sexual harassment I get. What does she expect people to answer? But she's an idiot. What an idiot. If you're in Hawaii, sound off in the chat room wherever you're at. I'd love to hear from you because your senator is an idiot. What a dirty old woman she is. By the way, if Macy Hirano is that concerned about sexual inconsistency, if Macy Hirano is ever really that concerned about dirty things that senators or nominees do, I think Macy Hirano might need to sweep off, what is it called? Take the plank out of your eye before you worry about someone else's eye. Maybe she should clean off her own back porch before she worries about someone else's back porch. A lot of sayings for there. From 1997 to 2017, the Office of Compliance in the U.S. Congress, that's the House and the Senate. You ready? In 10 years, they paid out more than $17 million for 264 settlements of awards to federal employees. The settlements covered workplace violations, including sexual harassment by members of Congress. So there's actually a secret fund that's not reported. The Capitol Police don't find out about it. People go and say, hey, Macy Hirano, maybe, or some other senator, somebody sexually harassed me or made unwanted advances, and they settle it all privately, and they have a secret fund for that. And let me give you more. In 2018, Congress passed legislation to reform the system, requiring a little bit more transparency and making members of Congress personally liable. But the new law does prohibit the use of taxpayer funds for sexual harassment claims against Congress. But the bottom line is millions of dollars in the last many years have been given away to people in Macy Hirano's colleagues, all of her colleagues, maybe herself, we don't know. Maybe they had to settle for Macy Hirano grabbing somebody on the arse or something. I don't know. I'm not saying it happened. I'm just saying we don't know because millions of dollars have been given away to victims of people that were sexually harassed by members of Congress. And they say there's a little bit more transparency than there was, but the bottom line, millions of dollars have been given away. So maybe Macy Hirano ought to be going around to members of Congress and asking them the question that she wanted to ask Pam Bondi and everybody else. What a disgusting woman. I mean, that's her question. I wonder if anybody went to voted the ballot box in Hawaii and said, wow, I really do want to ask people about their sexual improprieties. That's what. Was that her campaign that I will be the one that goes after sexual inconsistencies and impropriety? What a wild woman she is. Horny Hirano shall be her nickname. Let that go national if we can. Hirano asked Merrick Garland the same two questions. She does have a fetish. I think she does. I think she's got two cables, a clamp, and a battery there that she may be using at some point. Millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars, no doubt, that Macy Hirano and her colleagues have distributed to their own victims out there for harassment and groping and groveling and all the stuff that they've done. And yet she's asking poor old Pam Bondi, who's just trying to get a job there, about that. So anyway, Horny Hirano, I want that name to go national. And I've been pretty good at making names up for people. Remember, I had to get past the COVID squelchers and the algorithms. And so I'm the guy that started referring to Dr. Fauci as referred to Dr. Fauci as a little effer, and that they couldn't pick that up in the algorithms. Dr. Scarf was Dr. Birx because she always wore a scarf, and the actual COVID virus I refer to as the booger cootie virus, and that therefore we escaped all the confines of algorithms and communism. There, it's kind of like we YouTube, etc., have become communist Chinese operations in a sense, and they have we had to make up keywords and name words. Macy Hirano, anybody know anything? She asked Merrick Garland the same thing. Okay, she's got a weird fetish. She's a weird lady, and people of Hawaii, I don't know what you're doing out there, but you should do better. I mean, why didn't you send Tulsi Gabbard up there as a senator? Instead, you send Macy Hirano. You want to talk about two starkly different individuals. Wow, it's like. It's like Hawaii's like schizophrenic. They're bipolar there. They go, we got Macy Hirano, and we've got Tulsi Gabbard. It's like you're drunk or high or something in Hawaii. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. All right, yesterday there's a ceasefire announced between Hamas and Israel. What you think of that? A ceasefire between Hamas and Israel, and who gets the credit for it? Yesterday at a presser, Joe Biden was said that they asked him, and he came out and claimed victory, a victory lap with Blinken and Kamala Harris behind him. And they said, who gets more credit, you or Joe Biden? And all he could do in his bumbling self is turn around and say, is that a joke? Is that a joke? No, Joe, it's not a joke. I think a lot of folks realize that this ceasefire deal that was the same deal that's been on the ground and on the table for 8 months, like last May of 2024, and Hamas gave you the middle finger, you bumbling old fool. They said, Joe, go pound sand. And then they finally decided to accept the deal. And I heard that there was a member of government in Israel, and they asked him, they said, why do you think they accepted the deal from back last May? Why do they accept it now? And they said, well, they accepted it now because they know every day as it gets closer to January the 20th, the deal's going to get worse for Hamas because Donald J. Trump is a strong leader, not a feckless, demented leader. And Donald J. Trump said, hey, all hell will rain down if we don't have this whole thing solved out by the time I get into office. And so they knew they had to take the May deal because that was as good as it was going to get. So let me ask you the question of the day. Was this the Trump effect? Was the election of Donald J. Trump the final straw in the upcoming inauguration of Donald Trump, the final straw that caused a terrorist in Hamas to agree to a ceasefire with Israel, including some stipulations to release some hostages? Was this the Trump effect? Even John Kirby at the State Department and members of the State Department said it was a joint effort between the president, the current administration, and the incoming administration. Now, Karine Jean-Pierre, who's not the sharpest pencil in the bunch there, she's not the brightest bulb in the box, but Karine Jean-Pierre said, no, this was all Joseph Rubalad Biden. This was everything about Joseph Rubalad Biden, and he deserves a pat on the hiney for this, and then he can report to Macy Hirano that he patted himself on the hiney and harassed himself, and good for Joe. If he can get some action like that, good for him. So Karine Jean-Pierre said, no, it's all Joe. And it wasn't really all Joe. Even the State Department said it was not all Joe. So if anybody would like to stand up and say that it was all Joe Biden, feel free. But the question of the day, how much effect did Donald J. Trump have on this deal? Would this deal have been announced yesterday by Hamas and Israel had Kamala Harris won? Now, I have a friend, and I can't give too many details away. He's a former ambassador, and I knew that this past weekend he made a long flight on behalf of, let's just say, not Joe Biden. And he couldn't really say a lot, but he had been in Mar-a-Lago, and he was over, and he was over at the in some negotiations, and he was with Benjamin Netanyahu. And the State Department did admit that there were delegations sent by both the incoming and the outgoing president. And the great thing is, I think Donald J. Trump probably funded those trips himself to get this thing done. A lot of you are commenting. He probably patted many on the hiney. Joe Biden probably so. A lot of patting on the hiney, I think. Remember, don't forget when Joe Biden was running for office for president 4 years ago. One of his former staff members says she was really harassed in a parking garage, and the mainstream media would never tell that story. But she did interviews talking about the sexual harassment and the sexual proclivities of Joseph Rubalad Biden. But I guarantee you, horny Hirano voted for Joe Biden. Not worried about his sexual improprieties that have been alleged, but she wants to ask every person going into confirmation about their sexual improprieties and indiscretions. So, Hawaii, anybody out there from Hawaii? I'd love to hear from you. All right, that's the question of the day. Was this a Trump effect? The ceasefire, was this the Trump effect? And was it? I think in my estimation, there's no denying. But if you'd like to tell me how to deny this was a Trump effect, feel free to do so. Another quick story I want to get to. We got Michael Letts coming up here. Laura Carno's coming up today. Jay Ratliff, our aviation and travel expert, is going to be unleashed in the house of Lakey with me here today. Anybody watch the old Joseph Rubalad Biden give his farewell address last night? A lot of folks saying it was dark. A lot of people say it's the worst in presidential history. I watched it and I'm thinking, first of all, wipe the saliva out from your from your chin there. That would have been a good look. And it was just strange. He's living in never land. This is Joseph Rubalad Biden, who says he's worried about oligarchs. He's worried about oligarchs controlling the government. But yet he gave the Medal of Freedom Award last week to George Soros. He was talking about billionaires. He's afraid they're going to influence the government and influence elections. He's afraid of billionaires and oligarchs. And yet Joseph Rubeloud's handing off a Medal of Freedom to George Soros last week. Joe Biden is quickly, the more he talks, the more disgusting of an individual he becomes. At one point, if he would shut his pie hole, maybe he could just kind of sell the thing that he's just an old guy that gave one last effort for the country, and just let him ride off into the sunset. But the more he talks, and the more we find out that he's deliberately just trying to screw the country up in his final few days, you start to look I'm not here to judge the heart of a man, but Joseph Rubeloud Biden is not a nice guy. Joseph Rubeloud Biden is disgraceful. He's proving his disgracefulness. Anybody that would like to defend him is just a doddering old fool that's stumbling around and drooling and licking ice cream cones all day. The more Joe Biden talks, that speech last night, I think you can prove he's not just licking ice cream cones. Joseph says he's a disgrace to the name of Joseph. That's what Joseph says. I officially refuse to accept him. Dopiest Biden, exit stage left. Again, the guy is not, you think he's going to make a farewell speech and try to give some great oratory and talk about just, I don't know, say at 35,000 feet, but instead he gets into this dopey, dumbassery, if you want to call it that, of just talking nonsense. And then did you see behind the scenes photo? Evidently, Dr. Jill Biden was there. Hunter was over there. Wonder where's cocaine? Where did I hide that cocaine? We got to get it out of here before the new people come over. You got Dr. Jill. And we know that there's hatefulness between Dr. Jill and the Harrises, but she was holding Kamala's hand. Wasn't that sweet, precious? They're probably going to have a fight in an arm wrestling match later. But and you can look at the worried look on Hunter's face. He's like, did I hide drugs anywhere else in this White House? I need to get them before we get out of here. Oh, by the way, national tragedy. National tragedy. Alert, alert, alert. Hunter Biden, allegedly millions of dollars of his artwork were destroyed in the LA fires. I'm not, we had the burning of Notre Dame a couple of years ago, and I'm not sure they could rebuild it. I'm not sure our country can survive anymore. I think we might just need to call Great Britain and tell King George to get over here and take over. I don't know if the country can survive. I don't know if the art community especially will survive this great loss that Hunter Biden's art has been burned up in the fires of Malibu, and what a great loss. If there's any reason that we should have the flags at half-staff today and even past the Carter 30 days of mourning, it's probably for the loss of Hunter Biden's art. I know many of you are probably right now just shocked. Many of you, I can sense it. You're listening to this in the car, and you're pulling over to the side of the road right now to have a moment of loss and sadness. And you'll never now forget where you're at. You never. Some of you are old enough you remember where you're at from the Kennedy assassination. Some of you are old enough to remember where you're at for the Reagan assassination announcement. Some of you remember, like me, we're watching television at school, and the space shuttle blows up. You'll never forget where you're at. Well, I know some of you are never going to forget where you're at when you learn that Hunter Biden's art projects, many of the millions of dollars, they say, have been burned up. By the way, I'm guessing you think his art's going to be worth millions of dollars after January the 20th? Once they wheel old Joe Biden off to be spoon-fed at the nursing home, do you think anybody's going to be giving Hunter Biden millions of dollars for his finger painting? I think the answer to that is no, they're not going to. But anyway, I just want to always remember this moment that you and I had together. I'm the guy. It wasn't Walter Cronkite. It wasn't Peter Jennings. It wasn't David Muir. It was Jimmy Lakey who informed you the tragic national news that Hunter Biden's artwork was destroyed in the fires in Malibu. And for that, you have permission to take the rest of the day off work or just drink on the job because it's a sad day. It really is. All right. Nice to have you here, the Lakey Unleashed podcast. Don't forget you can subscribe to the Behind the Paywall. There's a lot of fun stuff behind the paywall interviews as you don't see here on the Daily Update. That's patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey, and patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. Rich got a good question. I wonder how much the artwork was insured for. Maybe there's insurance policy. I don't know. I don't know. How much was it insured for? Hunter needed an insurance claim to set himself up for the future. Maybe so. I don't know. All right. Good to have all of you here. I want to welcome my first guest of the morning. He's waiting patiently. Is Mr. Michael Letts. He has an organization called InvestUSA.org. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. Law enforcement genius and overall great commentator and a great fellow. Michael, welcome back to the show, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Jimmy. It's always a privilege to be with you. I must say I'm so moved by the loss of artwork that I have two Dobermans that I'm willing to let pee on a canvas, and we'll send it back out there to Hunter as one of my donations to help restore the great artwork that has been lost to society.
The art community, I'm sure, is a great loss right now, and I really, it may be just too soon to talk about it. It's such a great loss.
That's probably true.
maybe too soon. We can't talk about it. All right, Michael, I got a couple of topics I want to dive into with you, and one of those is talk of the Secret Service and the security community. A lot of talk about the Secret Service. Are they going to be able to protect Donald Trump? There's a lot of threats against him. Obviously, the Secret Service has had its screw-ups here in the last year. What about security this coming inauguration season, especially on Monday? What's your confidence? What are you hearing?
Well, I will tell you this, Jimmy. We have the highest security threat level we've ever had at an inauguration coming up this Monday. You have two factors involved. You have the worst weather we've had in 50 years is going to be predicted for Monday: snow, sleet, freezing temperatures. And then on top of that, we have credible threats, quite a few that have come in. And my position has been, we certainly are looking forward to the swearing in. As to how much further pomp and circumstance we do, it's not worth putting the American citizens who are trying to participate at risk. You know, Jimmy, with the technology we have nowadays, I think a lot of Americans would just rather sit in front of the fireplace with a nice, TV shot and enjoy the warmth and enjoy watching it instead of trying to be up there and fighting the elements and the security threats that are there. So I think, quite frankly, Jimmy, be prepared. There may be some changes at the last minute.
It's going to be interesting. It's always kind of a controversial and yet big deal that every president in the parade seems to get out of the car. Last 2016, President Trump got out famously walking with Melania and their son Barron down the street. It's a short stretch. They don't walk very far, but I'm guessing the Secret Service and the security agencies are on extra high alert on this one, and maybe going to tell them, hey, stay in the car.
Oh, there's no question on that aspect, Jimmy. And quite frankly, I think we've all got real question about the Secret Service's ability to provide the kind of protection that's needed. Now, we will have, special ops there, and we will have, law enforcement from all across the country, et cetera. The problem is, Jimmy, you're on the defensive, not on the offensive. And, from a military standpoint, those that are on the offensive can usually provide a hit to begin with before you can control the situation and eliminate it. And that's what the big concern is. I don't want to see any American injured. I know we're at great lengths to protect the president, but nobody deserves to be injured during what should be a celebratory issue. America is excited about the swearing in, and I think we should make sure we have an abundance of caution this time around.
It's going to be interesting, and again, a great day of celebration. By the way, if you're watching this, the Lakey Unleashed Streamcast, as I call it, don't forget, we're going to be doing this show live on the road Monday. We're going to be in Lafayette, Colorado. That is right between Denver and Boulder. We're going to be in Lafayette, Colorado, the Casbar Cigar Lounge. And yes, there's going to be cigars there, and I'm going to be enjoying those. There may actually be some beverages that aren't coffee, if you know what I'm saying. We're going to have a big celebration this coming Monday, and all are welcome. It's a free event, first come, first serve. This show will be done live from the Casbar Cigar Lounge in Lafayette, Colorado. Producer Chad will be there. I will be there. It's going to be fun. So it's going to be a very big fun time. Michael, maybe I can get you back on the show on Monday and have you chime in while we do the show live. I'll talk to your people about coming on with us again.
Love to. I'm envious, especially at a cigar location. Boy, that ought to be a lot of fun, Jimmy.
It shall be fun. And if you're out of state, by the way, we say it's Colorado. So when we say cigars, I'm talking real cigars. I'm not talking about that wacky tobacco. I'm not talking about that. It is Colorado, so you have to clarify a little bit of that. No wacky. This is the real cigars. Dominican, Honduran, Nicaraguan. You get the idea. And Cubans are illegal. We would never partake in an illegal Cuban. Never, ever, ever. Because Merrick Garland is probably looking for a way to prosecute us. So we would never partake in that type of wacky, that kind of, you can smoke the wacky tobacco in Colorado, but not the Cubans. All right, let's switch gears here. Michael Letts is my guest, investusa.org. InvestUSA.org is his organization. It's a great organization to support as they support local law enforcement. The California wildfires have been in the news for the last week now. A lot of fire on Gavin Newsom, a lot of fire, if you will, and fury going towards Karen Bass as well. Let me have your thoughts here. Is there Gavin Newsom? Is it unfair to give him any kind of blame on these California wildfires as firefighters are still trying to contain these blazes? The death toll's above almost 30, I think, right now. Many missing. What say you regarding the California wildfires?
Well, I will tell you this, Jimmy. Certainly, he gets as much blame as his little shoulders are. He's a small guy, so he's got small shoulders. But as much as you can put on there, he certainly deserves every bit of it. So does Miss Bass. And here's what we need to make sure: it's not just their stupidity. And yes, I'll use the word stupid is hard to fix. Okay, and they've got plenty of stupidity on both sides there. But it's not just their stupidity and incompetence; it's the policies that they represent. Those policies will continue to harm the American people until we recognize them for what they are. Their policies that they use to try to gain a cause, to try to launder money, pay money to their friends, have absolutely nothing to do with protecting the American people, such as the global warming issue. They use that to say, oh, we got to divert all the water to the oceans. We got to save this little fish that's not even native. Quite frankly, here's the most frustrating thing, Jimmy. I've never seen stupidity like this in my life. We have other agencies in other states that rush to assist. They load their tanker trucks. I was a firefighter. I know what it's like. Put 5,000 gallons of water in each one of these trucks. Now, quite frankly, that's heavy enough to begin with. It takes plenty of gas to get those trucks there. Drive all the way to the fire sites and are turned around. Won't even allow them to release. And what is the reason why they're turned around? Oh, your tankers don't have the emission control that California requires. When we actually take a look at it, those trucks were bought from California, okay? The fact of the matter is they changed the emission laws over the last few years, so they're no longer applicable. How stupid can you be, Jimmy? They weren't trying to move to live there. They were trying to help. That's the kind of policies that have to be changed, not just the stupidity of the leadership, but the policies themselves.
Yeah, and Gavin Newsom deserves all the blame. He signed that stupid emissions law into effect. He probably could have taken his smarmy ass somewhere and signed an executive order or a waiver. And it's the emissions law. Well, what do you think this smoke and this burning products of houses and plastic is doing to your emissions in your glorious state of Colorado? It makes no sense. But liberalism makes no sense. It is a mental disease that these people have, and Gavin Newsom is part and parcel of that mental disease because he signed these laws into effect.
He could have had great leadership there. He could have told the colonel of the highway patrol, I want units at as soon as they come across the state line to escort them to the fire, to show them how much we appreciate their assistance. Instead, what does he do? Let's try to get 300 Mexican firefighters. By the way, remember, I lived in Mexico for 15 years. I know what a Mexican firefighter is. He grabs a jacket, not even sure if it's the right one. Now he becomes a firefighter. That's it. How do you screen where those are terrorists coming across? You don't know that. That's how stupid he is. Turn down help that we know is certified from your neighboring states and say, I'll take Mexican help instead. He ought to go just live in Mexico.
Yeah, maybe they'll enjoy him more than we would enjoy him ever. I think that if there's anything good, and it's horrible what the average nice people of California are suffering. Celebrities are celebrities, and they have helped bring about the hellacious atmosphere that's in California. But there's some average folks or some good people there in California. But if there's anything that comes out of this fire, is probably the fact that Gavin Newsom is less likely to ever make it to the White House because of this, because it's on full display. The guy's a fool. He is a feckless leader, and there's no need to ever let him have keys to the White House, let alone access to the nuclear codes.
I couldn't have said it better, Jimmy. That and the rest of the politicians there, Bass and their legislature, it's just, I think what's finally occurring is people are realizing that they're not just stupid policies, but they have dire consequences, and they're now seeing the consequences are affecting them, and suddenly they're crying out, I don't think I want this anymore.
Yeah. I said this, fire is considered an act of God by insurance companies, but this is the damage here. The fire may be considered an act of God, but the widespread damage is an act of human stupidity, including the acts of Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. And here's a scary thought I'll give to you, Michael, as we depart ways here and talk about Invest USA. Karen Bass was on the short list to become Joseph Biden's vice president. If you recall, he couldn't have Amy Klobuchar because she had pro-police policies in Minnesota, and he had said it's got to be a woman, so he couldn't go to a fella. And he decided that Kamala and Karen Bass were his two final picks here. So if you think she's dumber than a box of bricks now and you think Kamala's bad, you almost had Karen Bass as your VP right now.
Yeah, it's a scary thought. Boy, what a way to go into the weekend, Jimmy. I'm so anxious for Monday. I can't wait any further. But you're right. And, one thing I want to kind of push out real quick is just remember, we're fixing to send our men and women to begin to the deportation movement of cartels and child molesters and the villains and the terrorists. Let's make sure that they have the necessary equipment to have a fighting chance to come home to their families. If they go to our website, www.investusa.org, it's a charity.org, you can make sure that these brave men and women have active shooter vests so they have a fighting chance when we start ridding this country of the scum that we have here.
Michael, that's always a pleasure, my friend. Let me, I'll talk to you, Sutton or Kimberly or somebody. I'll get you back on maybe for Monday for our cigar party, and you can live vicariously through us is where the cigars
I might even be able to pull a cigar out myself and join you via air.
All right, fly on in. Get your butt on up here.
Love it.
Catch a flight, and we have plenty of shelters if you don't want a hotel. We have homeless shelters everywhere because people like Gavin Newsom run our state as well. Michael, let's investusa.org, investusa.org. Let me just give you the reminder. Monday, we're going to be live at the Casbar Cigar Lounge in Lafayette, Colorado. Lafayette's a little liberal enclave outside of Boulder. If you can't afford to live in Boulder, Colorado, it's called drive till you qualify, and you drive further and further and further east. I live so far east because I was in radio for years. I'm like almost in Kansas. That's how far east I am. Lafayette is a liberal enclave right outside of Boulder, and it's not far from Denver as well, about halfway betwixt the two. It's about 40 minutes, probably 35 minutes south of the Fort Collins area. Anyway, everybody's welcome. We think it's going to fill up. We have no clue. We're not selling tickets. We're not having you sign up, but we think it's going to be a full house. So get there as early as you can. The doors will open just before 8:00, and we'll do this show live. I'll be there. Producer Chad will be there, and it's going to be an exciting time. And it's just, exciting time. All right, that's Monday. Don't miss it. Inauguration Day. Somebody asked yesterday or a couple of days ago, they said, how long will the party go? I said, until everybody sobers up, and then it'll go. So I got one friend who is going to be there, and he said, should I Uber or drive? And I said, I think that's a stupid question. If you're having to ask yourself, are you Ubering or driving? You probably just should go ahead and Uber right up front. So I think he's going to Uber there. He'll be there. Anyway, good to have all of you here. It's the Lakey Unleashed Daily Update. Glad to have you. Don't forget the Patreon page, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. Get behind the paywall. And there's a Leighton Gray interview that is fascinating about the nation of Canada. And please, if you will, go listen to that. It's a 7-day free trial. So listen to the Leighton Gray. Go listen to all of it. If you hate it and you don't want to pay for anything in the future, then unsubscribe. 7-day free trial, $9.95 a month. There's a free version as well, but the good stuff's on the paywall. Patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's Carno Tuesday, except it's Thursday. I know that confuses many of you that are drinking too much this morning, but Carno Tuesday on a Thursday because Laura Carno, she was on a special assignment by the Department of Justice or something. She was doing something special on Tuesday. She couldn't make it, but she graciously jumps in here with her high-dollar contract on the Lakey Unleashed Streamcast, as I call it. And Laura Carno, good morning. Fastercolorado.org is the website. Good morning, Laura.
Good morning. I was actually watching a friend get sworn in. We have a new judicial district here in Elbert County, Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln, split off from the 18th Judicial District. And so George Brockler was sworn in on Tuesday, and then our county commissioners here in Elbert County were sworn in on Tuesday. So it was, got to pay attention to who's getting sworn in that's protecting your rights in your area.
Yeah, George Brockler. How's old George doing? I haven't talked to George in a long time. I don't know why I didn't have him on the show more, but I guess I should have.
Yeah, it's interesting because with Sheriff Darren Weekly in Douglas County, he's making a big PR push, for lack of a better term. If you look at their social media pages, and they're basically saying, hey, look, Denver, Aurora criminals, if you come through Douglas County, we will find you, we will stop you, we will arrest you, and you will be convicted. And George Brockler is kind of part of that. And basically they're saying, just don't come bring your crimes here. Keep them in the other areas because you will be dealt with harshly here. And it's been kind of interesting to watch on their social media pages. But that's what we expect from our law enforcement public servants, is keep us safe. We don't need anything extraneous, just keep us safe and keep the bad guys off the street. And both of those gentlemen are laser focused on that, which is great.
Unlike the mayor of Denver, they had a mass murderer on the streets of Denver. One of my friends, who's a flight attendant for American Airlines, said that was one of our colleagues, that a 71-year-old flight attendant just walking down the 16th Street Mall. And what's amazing, Denver, the city and county of Denver, this is the same mayor now that said he was going to put a posse out on the city and county lines to fight off immigration and customs enforcement because he didn't want the illegals to leave. But he's got murderers on the streets of the 16th Street pedestrian mall, and they didn't sound the APB. They didn't warn anybody. This guy stabbed people over a matter of a few hours, and they should have had people standing around saying, don't go, everybody back to your cars, clear. They didn't do that. They just let innocent victims keep walking in downtown Denver because Michael Johnston is not committed to safety of his people, nor is he committed to law enforcement. They really bungled this one up in Denver.
Yeah, and imagine if you run like the Denver Chamber of Commerce and you're trying to tell people, hey, come to Denver for all of our, what is it again that we have? We have football, we have baseball, nothing's safe here. Like, imagine the tough job of that person trying to develop a strategy to encourage people to come spend their money in Denver. I think you and I have been together for, I don't know, 10 years, something like that. We've been talking. And a couple of years ago was my last day with a client in that downtown Denver area. And I'll tell you what, Jimmy, I was never so happy to stop earning some money, just because it is really a challenging place to be. And I was only there once a week, but I stopped going out to lunch. I started bringing my lunch, and something really small like that. Not like I was keeping any restaurants alive there, being there once a week, but I didn't want to step over people sleeping on the street and needles and human waste and all that kind of stuff. And, it's not a pleasant place to be.
Yeah. Anybody, I know a lot of our folks are Colorado centric, and you understand what Laura and I are talking about, and Steve Laffey and I talked about it yesterday as well. But any of you outside of the state of Colorado, you need to understand that Colorado is a beautiful place to live. Fantastic weather, except when it snows. The mountains are glorious to look at, but we're run by a bunch of idiots out there. We have a governor that wakes up every morning, looks in the mirror, and wishes, when he stands there and looks at himself in the mirror, he wishes he had the hairline that Gavin Newsom does, and he doesn't. So, but he wants the policies of Gavin Newsom. So if you look at Gavin Newsom and say, man, he's an idiot, our governor is Gavin Newsom, but he's ugly. And so that's kind of the he's a rich fat guy that just runs the state and wants to be the president. So warning America, I warn you, America, that Jared Polis, the ugly version of Gavin Newsom, is going to try to run this great and glorious nation as the president, and you got to you got to avoid him. When you hear the name Jared Polis, you should run as fast as you possibly can, because it ain't good. It ain't good. It ain't good. Laura Carno is my guest. If you just listen to the audio portion, her website, Faster Colorado, just Google that. They help provide protection and help for kids and campuses, and make sure kids stay safe in the dangerous state of Colorado and the wild world of school shooters. They help to do some training to keep kids safe. So that's Laura Carno. Laura, real quick, before I move to another topic, I want to ask you, did you see this story? It's percolated on Friday that Jared Polis was on the record and said he really is looking forward to working with Tom Homan and ICE about deporting illegal criminals that are in the state. And I thought, okay, you can't have it both ways, Jared. You just can't do that. You signed a law that prevents any sheriff or police department from contacting Immigration Customs Enforcement if they have someone that has an ICE detainer or an ICE hold on them. Our local law enforcement sheriffs, they can't communicate with ICE. And so in one form, Jared Polis says, well, I really want ICE we want to cooperate and get rid of these illegal criminals. But he signed a law that almost makes it impossible for the police to do that.
Right. And so back to your comment that Jared Polis wants to be president, when we look at these things that don't make sense, that he's saying, one thing to one audience, another thing to another audience. What I think Jared Polis did was listened very carefully to what voters were saying when they elected Donald Trump and elected other Republicans around the country when Republicans were given the majorities in both the House and Senate. I think he listened very carefully because a lot of that had to do with border security. And all of these people who've come over the border, many of whom are lovely people, I'm certain of it. So what he's saying is, and without using these words, let's keep the peaceful newcomers here in Colorado and let them integrate into our society and all of the good things that come with that. But let's get rid of the criminals, because it's very difficult to argue with let's get rid of criminals. But it all comes down to he wants to be the president. And honestly, Jimmy, it's sad to think about with all the stuff that's going to come our way from the state legislature this year, that Jared Polis may be our saving grace in vetoing some of the worst stuff or negotiating away some of the worst stuff because he wants to be president of the United States in 4 years.
I want to come back to Joe Biden and switch gears, but while we're talking about Polis, let's talk about some of the bills. If you're out of state, your Colorado legislature, your state legislature is probably considering some of the same stupidity. Unfortunately, the Democrats run both houses of our state legislature, and so they do more than just consider stupidity. A lot of times they pass stupidity, and then it goes to the governor who loves stupidity, and he signs bills. So these are probably the same kind of bills that happen in every state legislature. Just some of you are fortunate enough to have some real smart people that say, no, we're not even going to let that go to the floor for a vote. But the stupidest stuff you can imagine goes to the floor for a vote in this Colorado state legislature. And Laura, I know you've highlighted like we could call it the dumb bill of the week. That's in Colorado. What is it?
So it's so difficult to pick, to be very honest with you, because there are so many bad ones. But remember back when this was, by the way, 9 years ago, it came up in my Facebook memories that we were talking about powdered alcohol 9 years ago. And so I like to look for the ones that are sort of under the radar dumb. So there is a bill, it's House Bill 1010, and it has to do with price gouging. So basically it says if there is a declared emergency, let's say like COVID, if there's a declared emergency and you raise your prices on quote unquote necessities, no definition of what a necessity is. If you raise your prices more than 10% of what it was in the last 90 days, 10% is not very much, then you can be, as a retailer, you can be held accountable for this in some way. So what's interesting is there's no definition of necessities. There's no definition of, so what happens to you? There's no, like, who is the enforcement arm of this? Is there going to be a new board of price gouging? There is one thing that says that the Attorney General's office is going to need to do some rulemaking. So if this passes, Phil Weiser, who is running for governor, 2 years ahead of time running for governor, his office will say, here's how we're going to punish people. And I would just ask folks, if you haven't read Economics in One Lesson or some, very entry-level economics book, price gouging is a term to make us hate the free market fluctuations when supply and demand move up and down, and look no further back than the great toilet paper crisis of 2020. And if retailers had priced cases of toilet paper appropriately, you wouldn't have seen all the people who were lining up at Costco filling their baskets with all of the toilet paper they could carry out of there. You would have seen them getting what they needed, and there would have been enough left for other people who needed it. Some of those people are probably still using some of that toilet paper that they bought 4 years ago because they bought so much. But price is a signal from the market that the demand is high, and we need to just let the market be the market. This sounds like a silly little bill, but it could really mess with things. think about how little 10% is on a gallon of milk, for example.
It's a different bill, but when California, again, we have a governor who looks in the mirror and says, I may not be as pretty as Gavin Newsom, but can we be as stupid as Gavin Newsom? And he says yes every morning when he asks himself that question. Manipulating prices and price controls, price gouging, all these things. The left loves to do that because they want you to think that the free market won't work. Well, that's what they did in California. That chased out a lot of the insurance companies. They said the insurance companies cannot raise your rates, and we're going to do policies that are going to make it more likely that things are going to burn down. We're going to make fire hazards even greater, but you can't raise your price. And insurance companies said, tap, I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. And so this manipulation of the free market by liberals and leftists, it never works. And in some places, it ends up literally burning your state down.
Right. And the same thing happened here in Colorado with the healthcare exchange. So I'm an individual in the healthcare exchange. I finally had to get out of that and go to a non-traditional health insurance plan for myself because there were so many laws in Colorado that put so many restrictions and mandates on health insurance companies that a bunch of them said, just like you're talking about with the fire insurance companies in California, they tapped out and said that we can't offer competitive prices and still make a profit. And so they're out. And I saw a conversation on Facebook the other day. Somebody was talking exactly about this, and it was just tons and tons of comments from people who have needed to leave the healthcare market here in Colorado because of all of the restrictions. So if you're a yahoo like me who doesn't, belong to a company getting those group plans, you're really you have very few choices. So they aimed to quote unquote fix the health insurance market, and they screwed it up. So government can't figure out what the right price is. It's only the free market that has those buying and selling signals that can do that.
Last night, Joseph Rubalode Biden stayed up past his bedtime, and he gave a very interesting address from the Oval Office. I did not watch it live. I had it on, but I had the teleprompter, the captions, closed captioning on, and then I went back and kind of fast forwarded through because I don't remember every farewell address of every president, but that just seemed weird to me. Give me your thoughts about the farewell address of Joe Biden. It was dark. It was gloomy. It was filled with lies. Just give me your thoughts.
Yeah, so I had the same thought that it was interesting that it was past his bedtime. And then I further thought this could be pre-taped. They could have dumped a tape that he did at 2 p.m. or something. Anyway, I agree with you. So he started out with saying, look, I did this Israel deal. And there are many, many more people out there saying that was actually Trump's deal, that Trump had his negotiators in the area, and this is Trump's deal. Even if you don't want to believe that Trump had people there, the fact that Trump said if they don't release the hostages, that all hell will rain down on them, and people believe him, just the threat of something worse happening is certainly incentive enough for them to make a deal. So he started with, look how amazing we are. We made this deal. And then he jumps into, I agree, some very dark stuff. He said, I need to warn you about something. We can't have too much power concentrated in the hands of these billionaire oligarchs. And you're like, wait a second, didn't you just have George Soros' son accepting a medal on his behalf? And has anybody played politics with his billions more than George Soros? And so it's always interesting that we can smack around the other side's billionaires while not looking at our own billionaires, the plank in your eye, as you said.
Yeah, it was a very, very bizarre speech, bizarro land for sure. And in my estimation, rather than saving his legacy or trying to redefine his legacy, every day in his final few days, he becomes less and less likable. I think he's trying to, I don't know what he's doing, but the more news you hear about Joseph Biden, you're like, are you crazy? Or maybe you are. You should be saving your reputation, doing something to make yourself look good on your final few days. And yet he's just making himself look worse worser and worser and worser to be grammatically incorrect.
Yes, worser is fine. It's like illegaler. It's one of my favorite words. They take things that are already illegal and they make them illegaler because it's going to help. But yeah, then he goes on to talk about all these things that they did in their 4-year administration. And as I re-listened to it this morning just to catch the things I might have missed. He talked about some things they did that they didn't actually do, and he also talked about things that need to get done in the future. Like, hey, President Trump, you should do these things, like, for example, not allowing members of Congress to trade stocks, which I think was just a shot across the bow at his ex-friend Nancy Pelosi. But he has been there for 50 years, and if he thought that all of these things were worthwhile doing, what in God's name has he been doing for 50 years?
Yeah.
He's basically saying we did these wonderful things, half of which he's lying about. Donald Trump, you need to do all of these things, which I never did anything about. So it's it was a bizarre speech. It was nice and short, which was the only good thing about it, because he probably needed to take a nap and eat some pudding.
Even the State Department has said that they said it was an unusual thing. Donald Trump's team worked with the outgoing administration. And I actually know one of the guys that was there on behalf of, he didn't tell me directly, but he had been at the Mar-a-Lago, and suddenly talking to him, he's in Israel, and he says, I can't talk to you right now, Lakey. I can't talk to you because I'm with Netanyahu. So I'm telling you, Trump had his people there, and the State Department admits it, but Joseph Biden probably has forgotten that or something. It was a very bizarre scene. All right, real quick, some people in Colorado know what leader. Oh, by the way, people are complimenting you, Laura. Somebody says, do I have that one there? Laura Carno, smartest woman in Colorado.
Scott.
Yeah, Scott's drunk. That's
Scott. You're not obnoxious. I love Scott.
He's drunk. Listen, don't feed the bear, okay? Don't tell her these things because she'll want more pay from you.
Yes, I might want double the pay.
Double the pay. Listen, I want double the pay on this show as well. I'm making a fortune off this show called Z. It's an expensive hobby, is what I have right now.
Sure.
We're about to announce some advertisers here very soon. Laura, real quick, people in Colorado know what Leadership Program of the Rockies is, LPR, and there's always it's a good organization. I haven't been to one of their retreats, at one of their dinners. I guess there's banquets they have every year at the retreat. But this year, Newt Gingrich is coming to town. My friend Newt.
Yeah, so Leadership Program of the Rockies has an annual retreat that's open to anyone. That's you don't have to have been a part of the program. I graduated from LPR in 2011, way back in the day. I still stay very connected. But yeah, the dinner keynote, and this is, get my dates right, February 21st and 22nd down at the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs. So it's always a lovely time. But the dinner keynote this year is Newt Gingrich. And, Newt did the Contract for America. With America, for America, which one?
Contract for America. Contract with America. For America. I think it's for America.
Okay, he did the Great Contract.
I love prepositions, by the way. They're fantastic.
I just can't come up with the right one. But he, so he has, he had that front row seat to something very similar to what we're looking at now, which is the presidency and majorities in both chambers of Congress. And it's seemingly a very united Republican majority in Congress, based on what it is looking like is happening with all of Trump's nominees, even the ones that were deemed a little bit more controversial. So it's going to be very interesting to hear from the former speaker and get his perspective on what's going now. By all accounts, he's still very tight with the current the upcoming on Monday administration. And so, not going to probably get any secrets, but it'll be very interesting to get his perspective. And if folks want to learn more about it, you can go to leadershipprogramretreat.com, leadershipprogramretreat.com for ticket prices and all of the other details.
If you've never been to the Broadmoor, it's worth a trip down to the Broadmoor. Leadershipprogramretreat.com or .org?
.com.
Leadershipprogramretreat.com. Callista is Newt's wife. I've had Newt on the program a couple of times. I got to introduce him and warm up the crowd when he was running for president back in 2012. I think is when he ran for president last. I got to introduce him. I got a nice photo with Newt. He was in a big hurry, but our friend Patrick Davis stopped him and said, "Hey, you got to pose with Lakey. He warmed up your crowd while we were delayed at the airport." So I was with Newt, and I've interviewed him a couple of times on the show. His wife, Callista, I think I say it correctly. In the first Trump administration, she was the ambassador to the Vatican, and she has just been nominated to be Trump's ambassador to Switzerland.
Oh,
and
wonderful.
she evidently has connections to get ambassadorships, and I don't. I'm working on
it. I was gonna ask when your ambassadorship's coming through.
I don't know. Somebody said you'd be a great ambassador to Rwanda, and I said, that sounds like a great idea. But evidently, maybe I should say my name is Callista Gingrich, and to see if I could get an appointment there. I identify as a Gingrich. Maybe that. Well,
I'm just wondering how many people are in line for the ambassadorship to Rwanda.
No one.
Who knows more about Rwanda than Jimmy Lakey?
No one. No one knows more about that. Rwanda, a little trivial fact, it has not been a political appointment since the days of Reagan. There was trouble in the late 80s, and so in the early 90s, they kind of switched it back to a non-political appointee, but it's ripe for going back. They just had to have a State Department expert in it because of the trouble and the genocide and stuff, but it's ripe to go back to political appointees, and somebody said one time I might be a good one, and my phone number is 7. Laura Carno, it is a pleasure. Maybe I know you're far away, but maybe Monday we can. I know you're on Tuesday, but maybe Monday we can connect and you can jump in on the app here for a Monday celebration of the inauguration.
Let me check my calendar, and I will let you know. I have some stuff in Colorado Springs that day. I just don't know what time.
We'll figure it out. Laura Carno, a pleasure. Laura Carno, FasterColorado. Say it again.
FasterColorado.org.
FasterColorado.org. Great organization, great people, great person. Laura Carno, we talk to her usually on Tuesday, but today we talked to her on the Thursday. All right, real quick, let's go to some stolen memes here if we can. We're waiting the arrival of Jay Ratliff and our aviation travel expert. A lot of folks are giving criticism to Mark Zuckerberg because he's finally releasing supposedly the algorithms that says he's got his heart right. And this is a meme that I think maybe explains a lot of your feelings. I've changed, baby. I did Rogan. I'm based now. I'm good. And there's his battered wife, the people that use the Facebook and have had their businesses destroyed because of Zuckerberg. But there's Zuckerberg trying to convince the public that I'm a changed man, baby. I'm a changed man. The question is, how many of you believe that he's actually a changed man? Laura Carno was talking about the rush on toilet paper that happened during the COVID, and now we have a rush on eggs. Listen, this is a stolen meme. Back in my day, there was so much toilet paper and eggs that we would throw them at houses of our enemies. That's true. Do kids still throw the toilet paper on each other's trees? The TPing of the house, the wrapping of the house, whatever you call it. That's we were living the life of luxury back then. You'd sneak out at night and toilet paper your friend's house, and you threw the eggs. We never egged anything. That was inappropriate. But hey, that's the days we lived in, kids. You all can tell your grandkids that we were so big time back then that we threw eggs and toilet paper at our enemies, and that's true. Here's another meme, if you will, a stolen meme about Pete Hegseth. We're talking about Macy Hirano and her idiocy, and asking people about their sex life. Well, Pete Hegseth is awarded a Silver Star, according to Babylon Bee, for endearing a room full of hysterical women. That was his hearing the other day, and we talked about that these women that are liberals, man, they're angry and they're squawking, and their voice and their tenor of their voice is just awful. And for some reason, you don't seem to get that out of conservative women, but you get a mad liberal women. There's got to be a shot for that, a rabies shot or something. But those women, Pete Hegseth has now been awarded a Silver Star. Here's another one. Steve Byrne, my favorite comedian, talking about Michelle Obama not going to the inauguration. And Michelle Obama skipping to Trump's inauguration. And for the first time in my adult life, Steve Byrne says, I'm now proud of my country. Michelle Obama's not going to be there. There's still speculations of why Michelle's not there. People say it's a snub to Trump. I think there's more to that because she also didn't go to the Carter funeral. And so I think there's something else up in paradise. I'm not sure what's happened to Big Mike or Michelle, whatever your name for her is. But I'm telling you, you missed the Carter funeral and the inauguration. I'm thinking either Michelle Obama, there's something going on with her and Barry, or maybe she's just done with the spotlight, but it's very interesting that she's not going there. All right, I'm not responsible for this one. This has naughty words to it. And Yeah, just let this speak for itself. That's all I have to say. Just read it, and it's true. This person does no longer have a job, and evidently doesn't have a beep beep. There we have it. Everybody sinking in there. No shame me. I did not. This is not my fault. Let's blame it on Delilah. Let's blame it on the Aiden, some of the hipster youth at the Lakey Entertainment Towers, or blame it on producer Chad. I, my friends, sit in my sanctimonious chair and would never even laugh at something like that. What is this, sophomoric humor? I'm ashamed by this. We were talking about Denver and how Denver has changed greatly in the world that we live in. And I want to play this audio, if I may. And this is, if I can get it, this happened on the streets of Denver. There was a crime spree on the streets of Denver, and this is the hecklers show up here. This is the
I saw you at the parade, you fucking coward, Mayor.
bad words.
This is your fault. Crime-loving Democrats are burning this city down.
Crime-loving Democrats are burning this city down. A lot of beeps here going on if we were on terrestrial radio.
I'm sorry, Colette, can you repeat the question?
So they're doing a press conference. The irony of this whole thing is the press conference was Denver had a mass killer, like a serial killer, out stabbing people on the streets in the downtown Denver area on the great pedestrian mall. They were out there killing people. And in being out there killing people, it was not good because the Denver police, the Denver mayor's office, no one sounded a warning. We only kind of found out of it about after the fact. And people were dying. A flight attendant that was here on just a layover down on the 16th Street Mall in Denver got stabbed and died. I mean, it was a horrific serial stabbing, and the city of Denver did nothing to warn the people. But as soon as they figured out who it was and they caught the guy, the Denver mayor goes out there and holds a press conference. They hadn't even power washed the blood off the streets. But Mike Johnson, the disgusting mayor of Denver, goes out there and holds a press conference and claims some kind of a victory. And there's no victory to claim. A woman was dead. Others were injured. And the city of Denver did nothing to tell people, hey, it's unsafe. We have a mass killer on the streets here. And they did nothing to tell anyone. They did nothing to tell anyone. And this heckler had enough of it. He said, crime-loving Democrats are killing this city, and they're absolutely positively right. Roger says, I love that heckler, and I'm wondering if the guy doing the sign language was signing the heckler's message. That's a great question. Let me ask you this question. And if you're hearing impaired and you need the signs and all that stuff, I think it's fantastic. But these signers anymore, they become like celebrities of their own right. I've been watching the Karen Bass press conferences, and she seems to be, Gavin Newsom always had these signers out there. How did we ever survive back in our day and when we were youngsters? I remember sometimes you would have a signer like in a screen-in-screen, window-in-window, and then pop up on the bottom of the screen, they'd do the sign. And I remember sometimes at church there was a sign interpretation. But man, the sign, is it just me, or have the sign interpretations at public press conferences become, I don't know how we survived without them. I mean, they were, some of them are quite entertaining. That guy, matter of fact, let's go back and watch that again. Watch just the sign guy. Watch the sign guy. I don't know what he's signing, but he's getting into this thing. Watch him. I don't know if you can see his face. The small screens.
This is your fault. Crime-loving Democrats are burning this city down.
I think he's signing the guy. I think he's signing the guy. I think he signed it. Crime-loving Democrats are burning the city down. The suspect. This,
there is nothing.
Now let me ask you: there's a sign interpreter here. I'm looking at him going, God, he looks familiar. And then I'm like, wasn't he one of the burglars on Home Alone? It looks like one of the guys from Home Alone that was giving Kevin some hassles there. It looks like with that little hat on that he has, he looks like he might have been in the Home Alone movies. I'm not sure though. All right, good to have all of you here. Hopefully Jay Ratliff will get connected with us very soon. If not, we will move forward. Jay Ratliff, our aviation travel expert, I know he has confirmed that he's going to be there. We talked about the Hamas settlement within the peace accord with Israel. And the State Department admits that Donald Trump did have people there, and there was a joint venture. Joe Biden says it was all him, and it was wonderfully him. But that we think all of us with practicality know that the reason Hamas accepted a deal that had been on the table 9 months is because, as somebody from Israel said, they knew that every day it got closer to January the 20th, the deal was going to get worse for Hamas, so they took that one. And I said, I know someone that was over there, and they were not representing the Biden administration. Let's just say that. And so they were there, and they came to the table and said, hey, Donald Trump's pissed off, and he's ready to blow something up, and we got to take care of some things. So was the re-election of Trump what pushed Hamas into a ceasefire deal? I would say yes, but what say you? That is our question of the day. Does Joe Biden get to claim all the credit, or does Donald Trump at least get half the credit? Give me your thoughts there. Here's another one that I find interesting. The FDA, Food and Drug Administration, which is not necessarily a great organization. 30 years ago, they banned red dye number 3 from makeup, hair product, makeup and products for your face and skin. They banned it because they knew that it was very, very dangerous. However, they still allowed the food companies to put it in food. So you couldn't put it on your skin, but you could buy your kids some Fruit Loops and have your kids ingest it. A red dye number 3 had been banned in Europe. You can't use it there. They actually, you know what they use to color their Fruit Loops and their cereals in Europe? They actually use fruit. So if you get something that's red, they use fruit. You know, if you buy those little fruit cocktails, the little like pudding cups with fruit cocktails, the way they make those cherries red is red dye number 3. And so the FDA, on one hand, banned it for makeup decades ago, but they still wanted you to feed your kid this poison all the time. And they wanted you to feed your kids the poison of the red dye number 3. Well, the FDA came out yesterday after all these years of knowing that red dye number 3 was bad, and they banned red dye number 3 from use in America. Europe had already done this. And you have to ask yourself, is this the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. effect? Now, there's other dyes out there that are banned in Europe and have been banned in other products, but for some reason the FDA has allowed them to continue to be in our food. And I'm telling you, if you think that the Hamas-Israel peace deal is the peace accord is a marvelous thing because the peace deal is a Trump effect, I'm thinking the FDA action on red dye number 3 might have just been an RFK effect. That's possibly very, very, very true. The RFK has really started to move the swing. And I mean, how many of you are now more aware than ever before on the on things that Robert F. Kennedy has been talking about? I'll tell you this, the media, even the Tube of the U, some of you watch this program on this daily update, they don't want you to hear the gospel according to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. They will say that the World Health Organization does not allow it. Even when you talk about vaccinations, when you talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, how it's changed since you and I were kids versus the vaccinations now, they don't want you to hear that stuff. They don't want you to hear it. They want to censor that. Fortunately, on Twitter and on Facebook, it's getting a little bit better, hopefully on Facebook. But the Tube of the U does not want you to hear the things that Robert F. Kennedy's talked about. And for years, they didn't want you to hear the truth about Dr. Fauci. So it's the FDA, like the government food pyramid, has always been a joke. That's true. Remember that? Remember all of us grew up with the food pyramid and all the stuff, and it's all backwards. It's all wrong. It's all false. It's not good. It's just amazing how we have allowed government to manipulate us, our diet, and therefore manipulate our health. And you have to wonder why America has an obesity problem at all ages, and it's because of our diet, and it's because what we were convinced and brainwashed by the government was the healthy, good food pyramid. And actually, it was bad. It was very much not a good food pyramid, but we were told by the government it was true. And so I go back to the food pyramid and remember, when the government is telling you something, they're probably, maybe, possibly not telling you the truth. Now, there are times they tell you the truth, but there's other times that they lie to you, and we saw that back in 2020 with the booger cootie virus. All right, what else do I have here? Make sure we get all the comments in here. Don't forget, Monday, we're going to do the show live from Casbar Cigar Lounge in Lafayette, Colorado. It's a cigar celebration. You're welcome to come. It's a free event. We expect, I mean, it may just be producer Chad and I, but I don't think it will be. I think there's going to be a big crowd there. And if... yeah, I think there's going to be a big hoopla. It's going to be a great night, a great day, and doors will open just before 8 o'clock. and we'll let you in. It's going to be cold, so wear your coat if you're standing outside, but we'll open those doors up as quickly as possible. They normally open at 11. They're opening early for us at the Casbar Cigar, so we'll let their employees figure out what time the doors actually open. It's not my decision, but as soon as possible, get everybody in there. Get yourself a seat. There's televisions everywhere, and we'll do the show live Monday at the Casbar. And if you go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page, you go to events, and there's actually details on the events page, and you can RSVP there and just kind of see what's going on. There's an events page for it. All right, I want to remind you here, we're going to wrap it up here, but I do want to remind you, we really need your help. Patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. Got some great interviews. I'll start recording again tomorrow. That'll drop next week. One of those about vaccinations. That's coming up next week. So I'm looking forward to this interview. And a couple of interviews coming up. Cheryl Chumley, I think we're going to interview. I think she's live, though. I don't think it's a pre-record. I think she's a live interview. She's a great columnist. Washington Post. She's going to be with us as well. Anyway, go subscribe. Patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. There's a free version there. You just sign up for free. But if you want the good stuff behind the paywall, you need to sign up for the free stuff, and you can do that at there, $9.95 a month, 7-day free trial, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. Love to hear from you there. Indeed, I do. All right. One more thing before we wrap it up here. If those of you see that behind me, our House of Lakey banner, and the backdrop here, and you see Rivers Promise. The Rivers Promise is a placeholder. That's just my charity. And we want to put a studio sponsor up there. You'll be our big-time studio sponsor, big sponsor of the show. That's available. Send us info if you'd like to do that, info@Jimmy Lakey. There's other perks to that besides being on the banner, but you'll see that do that. But since Rivers Promise is on the banner, I want to ask you to do something today, which you contemplate and consider making a donation in just a couple of days. We send a big wire every year over to our work every month, around the middle of the month, over to our work in Africa. We send money throughout the day, but the biggest thing we do is about between the 15th and 20th, and we're short a little bit on some of the operations and providing kids food. So any of you that feel so led of the Lord and just feel so inclined, so inspired, if you want to go to riverspromise.org, make a donation today. You can put greatest need, just put Saw Jimmy on the whatever. We'll figure it out. But we're a little short, and we got to send some money over there real soon. So if you can help us out, go to riverspromise.org, and the money you give today is going to go directly to the kids, literally probably by tomorrow, and it's going to feed some kids so make sure we have full bellies, because we got staff at our school and teaching and stuff, and if we run short, the kids. We have to find something to cut. I'm like, okay, smaller portions until we make up the loss. So we had a great Christmas season, but we're a little behind in our January fundraising. So if you'll help us out, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. Remember, $30 feeds a kid for 2 meals a day for a whole month. And so if you give $30, you take care of a kid for a month. If you can only give $10, 10 cents, I don't care. Whatever you can give, would love to have you help us out. Riverspromise.org. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure. I don't know what happened to Jay Ratliff. I'm sorry that I told you he would be there, but he's not here. So I don't know. I miss him already. But it's Jimmy Lakey. Glad to have you. Don't forget tomorrow morning. It's going to be back here. Friday edition of the show. Then Monday is going to be Inauguration Day. Everybody, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. May God bless you. May God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. I'll be back tomorrow morning for the daily update. Until we meet again, Jimmy Lakey, peace. I'm out of here. Hey, everybody, if you're still hanging out, I've dismissed class, right? If you're still hanging out, that means you're right on your computer going to patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey or riverspromise.org. That's the only reason you should be hanging out here. Besides, it's loitering if you're not making use of yourself. Patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey or riverspromise.org. You're still loitering. I see you. I know you're out there. You're loitering. I see the numbers here, and all the platforms are on, and they total up here, and a lot of you loiterers out there. Hey, like and share this. Would you tell all your friends about us? Tell all your friends Lakey's Unleashed, the daily update. Now go, run along. Stop loitering. Use the hashtag Lakey Unleashed. Would you do that? Share us on the Twitter. Put us on the Rumble. Take the clip and take the Rumble clip and put it on Truth Social. And tell all of your friends and neighbors that this is the show that Jesus would watch in the morning. I think so. I just made that up. That's the gospel according to Jimmy, or we call it the King Jimmy version. Now run along here, or go to patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey or facebook.com. Yeah, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey or riverspromise.org. There's no other reason for you to be loitering here. Don't any of you have jobs? Nobody has jobs anymore. Nobody work, including me. I don't have a job either. I'm unemployed. I'll see you tomorrow. Now run along or make a donation. You